Hey y'all, I'm Dan, and this is Kinfolk, Stories of Community and Connection. This week, I'm chatting with Jeanne Stevenson, co-founder of Ecolit and author of Lost Moon Holler. Jeanne is a passionate advocate for Appalachian art and natural heritage. In this episode, we talk about her journey, the mural that inspired her book, and the legacy of her mama, Minnie Pearl. Let's dive in. Hey Jeanne, welcome to Kinfolk, Stories of Community and Connection. How's it going?
Going really well. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome, and thank you for joining and wanting to be on. I do want to share one quick personal note, and then we can dive in. As I've said before, you're such an asset to this community and this state. I think the first time that we met was at Festival downtown.
At the street fair,
yes,
the Capitol Street Fair. Yep.
Yes, that. And I remember I was walking down that. They had those tents, and I had remember seeing people sharing your post and people talking about Ecolit, but I had never been able to make it to the store. So when I saw you set up there, I was really excited. The reason I'm sharing this is because when I was there, I had asked about printmaking. You intently were listening, and it just made me feel so seen because before then, I have not like I don't like to share my art, but there's kind of like this vulnerability with it, and told me to come down by the shop. You've just helped me so much with all of that and tie it together. This is just kind of for the listeners too. The logo that you see for Kinfolk was actually made by Ecolit. It was designed by Megan. So I just think it kind of come full circle. And in short, I'm just really excited to have you here.
Well, thank you. Well, Megan did such a great job with your logo. But backing up, part of our passion as a small business is supporting local artists. We just want to welcome you and hug you and support you and make you feel confident about your work so that you feel good about sharing it. And we want it to look as amazing as it possibly can. So to hear you kind of tell me that was your experience, that just makes my heart feel wonderful, because that's our goal, is just support you all and to help other Appalachian artists, because we're artists too, and we know how hard it is and how vulnerable you are when you create. So it means a lot that it worked with you. So thank you for telling me that.
You're so welcome. And I know the kind of like the main point you're here is to talk about your book, but if you do want to take a little bit to talk about Ecolit, just for listeners or watchers who aren't familiar with you or Ecolit, I think that would be great.
Sure. So my husband, Chris, and I started Ecolit back in 2008 in the basement of our home when we lived here in Fort Hill in Charleston. And we basically sold educational art that we created either ourselves or working with local artists and folks online, and it exploded. I mean, we did really well. We focused on literary art and character, and we outgrew our basement and looked for a space, which we found on the Elk City, the west side of Charleston here, where we love. And during the pandemic, like imbeciles, we moved into our building finally. It was the true paradox. We were so excited to finally be getting into a space, but the pandemic had just started. So we were scared to death. But we decided to just go all in, and we moved into our space. And our biggest goal when we moved into our space was to be a small business neighbor who supported other artisans in our neighborhood and in our state. And we've just grown into that role, and we love it. We're so happy to be there. We're happy to be in our space. We just like to create beauty and support beauty and the arts, and I think that's what we're doing. So we feel good about it.
I think you guys have done very well. Some of the stories that we've shared being in the store just kind of furthers that. But before diving into the book, I have just one more question for you.
Sure.
Because I'm curious on my own too. When did your love for art, your passion for wanting to, kind of help educate and create, when did all that start?
I've always been that way. Always. I'm the middle child of 7 kids, and I was sort of the creative Mother Earth persona to all my siblings. I was the one who made the special birthday cakes that I decorated special. I was the one helping with the piano lessons. I mean, we were like Little Women or something. We were always doing theater that we created our own costumes for. I mean, so I've always had the passion to, and I had no fear about it, where I know some people do. I fearlessly create and support the arts, and I want to help other people do that too.
Lost Moon Holler.
Hmm.
So my first question, it started out as a mural, and then you say that as Al and Lane were, creating this mural, a story kind of took shape in your mind. Could you walk me through that? Could you talk to me about that?
Yes, I've wanted to create a mural, and now I'm obsessed with murals. I want to put them everywhere for about 5 years since we moved into the shop. And I wanted to create something moody and folklore style with a little literary element to it. I think you see the mural, Maddie's reading the book. And I wanted it to incorporate all Appalachian flora and fauna to kind of pay homage to our natural diversity. And I hadn't seen a mural anywhere like it, that what I was sort of envisioning. I wanted it to sort of be an Appalachian oasis in the city, where like you were on a busy street and then you look to that mural and it's just such a serene scene. And I actually broke my ankle it was about 2 years ago, and it forced me to stop, which is hard for me to do, but I broke it and I had to have surgery. So I was immobile for about 3 weeks, and then I was on crutches. But during that time of just utter entrapment, it forced me to focus on hashing out kind of how I wanted it to be put together. So I worked with Al, my son-in-law, and Lane, my son, on developing the characters. And they're both just such wonderful artists. They created something so beautiful. And during my time of repose, I was also able to track down funding. Margaret Workman's Foundation funded the mural in memory of her two children that I knew very well, Lindsay Gardner and Edward Gardner. We call him Ted Gardner. So during that time, I was able to really get so much done on it. And as they were creating those characters and that scene in the mural, that's when I started to develop the story. And then the few months after, I was better and could walk again after my incident. While they were putting it up, and they actually one night came and projected it on that wall and drew it and then hand painted it, like literally hand painted it. It's a hand painted piece of art there. It just really came alive in my mind, and I started working through the story.
It's almost mind blowing because what's the sizing of it? It's
Gosh,
big. It's very
it's
big.
like 20 by 20. Does that sound about right? Or
It
22
does.
by 22, something. It's a big square. It's huge. They did it over the course of 2 weeks, and we put scaffolding up, and they worked so hard. It was really cool to see how well they worked together too. And the whole process of creating art on that scale was just so fulfilling. I wasn't finished with it. I wanted to do the book. So I started pestering Al, and he wanted to do the illustrations for it, and we worked through the story, and it's just been my favorite thing so far. I can't wait to do more of it. We're working on some other things, but I'll tell you about them at the end.
It is, for listeners and watchers who have not seen the mural and don't have the book, I encourage you to, if you can, make your way to the mural because it is gorgeous, it's stunning, and also get a copy of the book because it's life changing. I'm serious, okay? It is, and we'll get there. We will get there.
Thank you.
So you talk about how the book reflects, the walks that you took with your mama.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any, I guess, plants or animals in the book that hold any significance or special value for you?
Many of them. So I wasn't born in West Virginia. I was born in northern Michigan, and we moved here the summer when I was in fourth grade, um, to a little farmhouse out Wayne, right on the edge of a holler. And I had lived before then in Newport News, Virginia.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was by all counts a city girl. And I wasn't immediately comfortable in West Virginia in my mama's farmhouse. I didn't have any friends right away. It was very closed community, and didn't I was a little afraid of the woods. I mean, I wasn't used to it. And my mama had been a one-room school teacher, the Hollers in Boone County. She actually went to Marshall when it was called a normal school, and that's where they taught women at the time to be school teachers. So she was very brilliant. She was a brilliant woman, but she was also just a core Appalachian mama. She either had a book in her hand or a shovel in her hand. She was either gardening or reading. And Mama took me under her wing. She saw that I was struggling, and she taught me how to garden. That's what our next book's going to be about. She taught me to be comfortable in the woods, and she taught me to this day, I can walk out in the woods and I can name everything I see because of Mama. And through knowledge and the heritage, our beautiful natural heritage that she shared with me in the most brilliant way, I just became more and more comfortable, and then more and more in love with our Appalachian natural heritage. It's a wonder. It's my favorite thing about our state. So yes, there are many creatures in the mural and in the book that are my absolute favorites. One is black snakes. We actually had a black snake that lived in our cellar, which we were told to leave alone because you probably know this, they eat rodents. So it was huge. It was a huge, but we knew not to be afraid of them and just to give it its space. For animals and plants, my favorite plants are jack in the pulpits. They are so rare. And I remember the day that Mama took me way up through a horse pasture, past a spring, way off in this little dark patch, and showed me my first jack in the pulpits. And I was just mesmerized with them. I'd never seen anything so cool. So yeah, we had to have jack in the pulpits in the book and in the mural too.
I think it's neat that you say that, because one thing that stuck out to me when I was reading through the book was when I saw that name, Jack in the Pulpit, it took me back. I can remember way back, which I wish I would have paid attention more, that my dad, he sees a tree, he can tell you what it is. And I remember it was a project for school. You had to like collect the leaves and use like that trace paper and trace the leaves and identify them. Well, I've never seen Jack in the Pulpit in the wild, like an actual in life plant. And it just took me back to, I remember him talking about it. And I think it's really neat, for younger people or anybody to read, to read the book and to, learn things that they don't know grow or don't know, exist out there that they can go and see.
It's a marvel, our forests. And I love them so much. I remember the night that Mama showed me a Luna moth for the first time. The moon was full and it had come down off a tree. They're huge. They're brilliant green. They're so beautiful. They shouldn't exist. They're so cool. So she really just sparked this love of nature for me. So I wanted to capture that in my book. And I wanted to share it with kids so that maybe they could feel that same wonder and amazement and pride in our natural heritage. I want them to be proud of what we have here and how cool it is.
I do kind of want to lead on that, taking pride in this, because I kind of early in my life, I was kind of wanting to get out of West Virginia, to get away from this state, this region. I didn't like the people. I didn't like the state. I didn't want to be here. Well, the longer I stayed and the more I grew and the more that I actually experienced the nature and the wildlife here in West Virginia, it really started to keep me here. Like, I started to take pride in it. And I think one thing of reading this book, just flipping through, like, I wanted to get through it as fast as I could. To me, as often as Appalachia is misrepresented, when you say a holler, not everyone knows what a holler is. And usually when they hear the term holler, they think of like, Lord, like pothole ridden trailers, whatever, trashy, nasty, which sure. But when I say holler, this is what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beauty, the magic, the animals, the plants. This is what I'm talking about. And that really makes me so happy and proud to be able to say that I call this place home.
Yeah. Look, we're not perfect. We've certainly got some work to do here in West Virginia, but it's all there. Our natural diversity that we should be, so it's there, and we're getting there. We're relying on that and sharing it with people and friends of my kids who've gone out of state to school, who come in to visit, who've never been here, who only know what generally the media shows them about West Virginia, are blown away. They're like, wow, we had no idea. And I'm like, yeah, come back anytime. And that's West Virginia too, isn't it? It's like, yeah, y'all come back anytime you want. You can stay here. I'll feed you biscuits, hang out. And I think the relaxed nature about us is something people really love and like to be around. And just the openness of the folks here is something that you don't see very many places.
So you did mention the importance of the younger generation and exposing kids to the natural world and kind of that respect. You have done some work up in Pocahontas County, if I'm right.
You're right. At that same art fair where you and I met, a lady by the name of Tracy Valage introduced herself to me, and she got the book and loved it, and it spoke to her. And she has a program in Pocahontas County called Nature's Mountain School, and she put together the funding to buy a book for every early elementary kid in Pocahontas County. And I traveled up there. She wrote lesson plans for it, actually, her team. And I went to every early elementary school in Pocahontas County and read the book with each classroom. We talked about our natural heritage. We talked about native plants and animals, and just I shared the story with them and got to connect with them. They connected with the story. Just to see them act out that first scene with the baby possums was hilarious. I would say, now teachers, can we scream just for these next couple pages? And they would say, okay. So they got to scream to wake up Mama Possum. It just really inspired me more to share the story more. Tamarack picked it up. All the state parks carry it.
Really?
We are working. Al just finished a lesson plan booklet for us that we put together, and we're going to share it with the teachers. I'm going to start contacting other counties about it with the lesson plans we created, because I want to bring the same thing to all the other counties that we got to have in Pocahontas County with the stories. So, yeah, I loved it. It keeps building. You know, when one thing clicks, I just want to keep building on it. We created the coloring book that we chose our favorite plants and animals and insects from the book and created a coloring book for it. We created a scavenger hunt sheet to go with it, so they can kids who come to see the mural can learn the names of each of the creatures in the mural. And now that we've wrapped up the lesson plan packet that we want to share with teachers, we're starting our next book. It's going to be more. So one of the things that my mama taught me was how to garden, and how to garden in a very organic and natural way. We didn't use chemical fertilizers. And she also taught me how to harvest seeds at the end of the season for reuse for next year. And one of my favorite memories with her is planting marigolds and nasturtiums. And we planted them all around the outside of the garden because it was a natural deterrent and also sort of a natural pesticide for animals. And then at the end of every season, we would harvest the marigold and the nasturtium seeds to reuse for the next year. So we're going to kind of introduce that in our next book about how plants carry on and you can take the seeds and keep using them. And so we're going to kind of add a little gardening element into the story. So I want to teach the kids more about controlling their natural heritage and using it to grow and sort of participate in it.
Some of the questions that, or some stuff that you've said were actually some of the questions I had saved for the rapid fire questions. So I want to change the rules here a little bit because it is my show. We can do what we want here, okay?
Yes, you make the rules, Dan.
So instead of rapid fire questions, they're just going to be like just general questions. So instead of just like saying whatever first comes to mind, you can elaborate on them if you want, because typically the rules, you're supposed to just say one word and then move on, but we're changing the rules here.
We have a little space to say a bit more.
We do.
Okay, I'm ready. Although I don't know, I was getting a little excited about rapid fire.
I have 3 questions. I'll make one of them, we'll make maybe 2 of them rapid fire, and then one of them is, so this one I think I may already know the answer to, but the first question is, when you're being creative, what is your drink of choice?
Coffee, always. It's always coffee. First coffee, last coffee. Coffee. Yes.
This one can be rapid fire if you want it to be. If not, it's okay. When you aren't at the shop, where in Appalachia would one find you?
Gosh, just outside, anywhere outside. If I can be outside, I'm going to be. Even if it's just on my porch or digging around in my yard, I'm going to be outside.
Listen, there is no better medicine than porch sitting, okay?
Yes. I love a porch. We had a patio that we really kind of went to town on that we loved when we lived in Fort Hill, but moving over here to the west side in Edgewood into a house with a bona fide porch has made me a happy girl. Yes.
So last question, and you've touched on it a little, but I kind of want to explore it just a little bit deeper. What is your favorite memory from growing up in Wayne County?
Okay, so we need to stop there for a minute, Dan. We don't say we grew up in Wayne County. You say when you grew up out Wayne.
So I need clarity on something, okay? So I had a coworker and she would use these 3 phrases. I think it was out Wayne, way out Wayne, or something like that. And and she would always compare it to like there was a stoplight or a courthouse or a schoolhouse or something. And that was her measurement.
We were never in Wayne County. We were out Wayne.
Out Wayne.
So when I was out Wayne, we even had, you remember those round bumper stickers that were like Nag's Head?
Oh, yeah.
There were OWs that somebody made that my dad had one of on the back of his little pickup truck. It's out Wayne. Now you know.
What is your favorite memory growing up out Wayne or from out Wayne?
Just growing up out Wayne.
Growing up out Wayne.
Gosh, I had many. Gardening with my mama down the paths of our holler. We didn't just have food garden. We had these huge meandering paths that went out through our hollers, past ponds and springs, and actually past cliffs. And the back end of our property overlooked the Ohio River.
Oh, wow.
But one of the things that I loved to do with Mama was we would take a mattock and a shovel and we would keep spreading the lilies, the hostas, and the daffodils along the edges of the paths. So every year we would go and split them and then just keep planting them farther and farther out there. And while we were doing that, we were learning more about other plants and animals. We would gather greens. She called it picking a mess of greens. And so I learned all about the edible plants and animals. And there was just something peaceful and grounding and serene about just working out in the woods to make something more beautiful and being in the wild and relaxing and just talking with Mama. Those times are probably my best memories, and I remember them just like they happened yesterday. And I love them. So those are my favorite memories growing up.
What was your mama's name?
Minnie Pearl.
Minnie Pearl.
Minnie Pearl Thompson.
I love it.
She was so cool. Have you ever heard of Catfish Hunter, Man of the Woods?
I don't think so.
Look him up. I learned about him when I was much younger. And basically, he was this West Virginia woodsman who knew the health properties and edible properties of our plants here in West Virginia. So Mama was very much like him. And she almost has a mythical quality in my mind where she knew so much, about what types of plants like sassafras we could do with it, what types of plants we could just harvest and eat and forage. We foraged all the time. And it connected me with our nature and our earth in a way that I want people to also have instilled in them.
Of course.
So yeah, I'm a mama now, so I kind of understand.
You've earned your title.
Yeah, well, my friends were like, do you want to be called grandma? And I said, no, I'm a mama, and I want to be a mama, and I want to make other mamas proud, and I want to be in the mama club. So yes, I'm a very happy mama.
I love it. Before we do close, I'd love to let listeners know where they can connect with you at.
Sure. So our shop, we love people to come to our shop. So if you're local, please come by our shop. We're at 427 Washington Street West here in Charleston. Just know that we'll jabber with you for a long time, as I'm sure you know, Dan. People don't just come and buy something. Just end up hanging out and having good conversations with people. Come to our shop if you can. If not, we sell our book in all the state parks here in West Virginia and also in Tamarack. So if you're down Beckley's way, you can get it there at Tamarack. And also on our website, EchoLit, Echo, ECHO. And you can buy the book and the coloring book there. And soon we're going to have our downloadable lesson plans that accompany the book. They're listed on the website. In about a week, we'll have that ready. We're on Instagram. It's at Echo Literary Arts. And we're on Facebook at Echo Lit. I think we're on TikTok, but we don't have a big following there. But you can find us there too.
All of your socials and how people can get the book will be listed there in the show notes.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really love this, and I always love sharing stories about our natural heritage and especially about my mama. So I appreciate you having me on.
You're so welcome. Thanks for listening to this episode of Kinfolk, Stories of Community and Connection. Jeanne's story and her work at EchoLit are such a beautiful example of preserving Appalachian heritage while fostering creativity. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow and rate the show on your favorite podcast platform. You can also connect with me and join the community on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Do you have a small Appalachian business or know someone who would like to share their story? Send me an email at kinfolkpodcastconnect@gmail.com. Show notes, including how to connect with Jeanne and EchoLit, can be found in the description and on Instagram. Until next time, keep exploring, stay kind, and don't be a stranger.